Good morning, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and your excellencies. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Alistair Burt. I have the honour to be the chairman of the Emirates Society, the Friendship Society connecting the UAE and the UK. And this is a joint meeting with the UK UAE Business Council to discuss mutual opportunities for trade and investment. This is, of course, a very special time, both for the United Kingdom and especially for the UAE as it heads towards its celebration of the 50 years of its existence. And of course, as we head towards Dubai 2021 for the great exhibition, which will also demonstrate some of the achievements of the UAE, but also open the UAE up to the world in that very special way that it has. This is a particular meeting devoted to investment, but just a word before we get into it, just for housekeeping. I will introduce those on the panel in just a moment. If you would like to ask a question once the ministers have finished speaking, then please put it in the Q&A box. We'll be monitoring this all the time. I will try and get through as many questions as possible. Where possible, we will unmute you so that you'll be able to ask your question direct. It may not always be possible, and if for reasons of time I have to read questions, then please permit me to do so. If you would like me to read the question rather than be called, then please make that clear in your question that you put in, and you can start submitting the questions at any time. This event is going to focus on the UK-UAE investment relationship, and it's going to look at how to drive greater investment, business expansion, and business collaboration between the two countries. We hope the discussion will focus on the policy and economic approach needed to make investment and economic cooperation easier and more effective, as well as ways to create a broader ecosystem of knowledge sharing, collaboration, and alignment between large multinational businesses, fast-growing startups, and SMEs. And we could not have a better team to discuss this with you. And thank you all very much for joining us. Speaking for the UAE will be His Excellency Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al Zeyoudi, who is the UAE Minister of State for Foreign Trade. He was appointed to that role following the new UAE government structure in July 2020, and has been assigned a file to attract the best talents and competencies to serve the strategic direction of the Emirates. His Excellency also oversees the development of non-oil foreign trade sectors and the expansion of global partnerships, in addition to enhancing the investment climate in the UAE in order to cement its position as a major business destination at regional and global level. Following him for the United Kingdom will be Lord Grimstone, Minister for Investment at the Department of International Trade and Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Lord Grimstone was appointed to this role in March 2020, and in his role at the Department of International Trade, he oversees developing new investment strategies, promotion of investment and strengthening business investor relations. And in his role at BEIS, Grimstone works across investment in the advanced manufacturing, automotive, infrastructure, materials, including steel, professional and business services. In addition to his work within the government, Lord Grimstone has served in multiple executive roles across the public and private sector. Most recently, he led on delivering the UAE-UK Sovereign Investment Partnership with Mubadala. Before I introduce each of our two main speakers to speak, I'm delighted to welcome Lord Lister, who is the chairman of the UAE-UK Business Council, with whom the Emirates Society is sharing this meeting. Lord Lister is, of course, a member of the House of Lords and most recently served as the UK government's special envoy to the Gulf. He also served as Prime Minister Boris Johnson's chief strategic advisor from July 2019 until assuming the position of Downing Street Chief of Staff from November 20 to January 21. Lord Lister is a long-time friend, both of the UAE, of the Emirates Society, and of all of us in London and in government. And I'm delighted, Lord Lister, if you would begin our session today with a few opening introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you very much to everybody for joining this call. It's not an understatement to say that this is an important time for us with our relationship, which has been getting stronger, and to the UAE government and the UK government for what they've been doing together to drive this relationship forward. And the 50th anniversary is going to be a great opportunity for us to take this whole relationship to its next step. Already there has been the strategic partnership that's been announced in life sciences with a joint fund of 800 million from the Emirati side and 200 million from the British Treasury, which is a major investment. It's not something that the British government has ever done before. It is unique, or not to my knowledge they've ever done it before. It is a unique agreement, and I think just shows how important this relationship is and how much further, hopefully, it is going to go. As countries, we share similar priorities. We have a shared interest in building more resilience through economic diversification. We both need that. We need investment in skills, in new technologies, in innovation, and in which, of course, the ministers who are on this call today know far more about than I do, and but I'm very, very supportive of. The UAE-UK Business Council plays an important role in shaping the future trajectory of our bilateral relationship. We are a thought leadership organisation as us on the barriers to doing business, as well as the emerging trends and opportunities. And I'm very privileged to be a co-chair with His Excellency Ahmed Al-Sayed. And between us, we act as connectors for British business and to try and encourage greater working together. And we also have the benefit of both being being at the joint ministerial conference, which takes place, or joint ministerial committee, I should say, which takes place shortly. And we have an opportunity to report to the relevant ministers on our progress. And it is also a great opportunity for us to help influence the trade relationships as they're developed, to try and identify the barriers, get through those barriers, work out how we can improve everything working forward. So like everybody else, I'm really looking forward to listening to Lord Grimstone and His Excellency, Dr. Thani bin Zeyoudi, about where they're going with the new trade relationship. And thank you for giving me an opportunity of saying a few words.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Lord Lister, co-chairman of the UK-UAE Business Council. Thank you very much for setting us off. Just before I ask Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al-Zeyoudi to speak, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Her Excellency Rauda Al-Atiba, who is the Deputy Ambassador for the UAE in London. It's a great pleasure to have you with us, representing His Excellency, who I know is also extremely busy at present and has another engagement, but thank you for joining us today and showing the support of the Embassy. It's now my very great pleasure to introduce His Excellency Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al-Zeyoudi, who will address us on his ideas for growing the investment partnership between the UK and the UAE. Your Excellency, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much, Excellencies and colleagues. Good morning. It's a real pleasure and honor to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar on accelerating the business collaboration and investments between the United Arab Emirates and the United Kingdom. And let me begin by thanking the Emirates Society and the UAE-UK Business Council for organizing this important discussion, which will surely lead to greater economic ties with the UK. As you all know, the UK is a long-standing and trusted partner of the UAE. The UAE's strong bilateral relationship with the UK dates back to our very birth of a nation, the 50th anniversary of which we celebrate this year. It's a relationship and indeed a friendship reinforced by close economic cooperation, strategic alliances, cultural celebrations, and trade exchange, as well as partnerships. Today, more than 120,000 British nationals call the UAE home and play an active role in the UAE's businesses, cultural and sport life of our nation. From education to our legal systems, our partnership with UK contributes significantly to the UAE growth and development and supports our efforts to create a knowledge-driven economy and attractive destination for talent. It's perhaps no surprise that the UAE is the UK's #1 trading partner abroad, with a total value of non-oil foreign trade between our two countries amounting to more than $8 billion in last year, 2020. Additionally, the total exchange of investments between both countries reached around $40 billion, and for sure this reflects the shared commitments of our respective governments promoting rapid economic growth, and we certainly believe that there is more to come, inshallah. In today's increasingly complex and fast-changing environment, the UAE is putting a priority in our economy and the future growth by strengthening global trade ties and building on our role as one of the world's leading business centers. In fact, we recently launched our projects of the 50th initiative, which charts the UAE's economic and social course for the next 50 years, underscoring our commitments to developing a knowledge-based economy that attracts greater investments and talents to the UAE and champions global trade as a means of expanding opportunities and developments. The measures outlined in our national agenda are designed to double the UAE's total economic output to 3 trillion dirhams, or over $800 billion by 2031. The UAE believes that our relationships with like-minded, outward-looking economies such as the UK will be essential components to achieve this ambition, and the areas for potential collaboration between our both nations are constantly expanding. But we are particularly excited by the opportunities in life science, renewable energy, environment, food security, logistics, education, scientific research, and advanced technologies, which are all in line with the UAE's and UK's economic vision for the post-COVID era. We have already started to see this in action. Earlier this year, Abu Dhabi Mubadala Investment Company entered into a long-term investment agreement with UK Department for International Trade. The UAE's UK Sovereign Investment Partnership will provide framework to invest in high potential areas and has already resulted in commitments of £800 billion to the UK's life science sector. Additionally, North Irish company Quebecco was selected to design and build waste recycling solutions for Expo 2020 in Dubai. The UK's participation in the forthcoming Expo reflects a strong relationship with the UAE and once again underscores the event's significance as an international platform that will help to drive greater global connectivity. There is no doubt that the UK Pavilion at the Expo will stand out by highlighting the UK's expertise and experience in the fields of artificial intelligence to space technologies, among many others. The UK Pavilion at Expo will also host the next Joint Economic Committee between the UAE and UK on October 18, and highly encourage the UAE-UK Business Council to leverage this platform and meet on the sidelines. As the UAE embarks on a new phase of enhanced economic cooperation, I do believe that business commitments of both the UAE and UK hold tremendous potential to contribute to our collective prosperity. I look forward to our discussion on how the UAE and UK can work together to enhance economic cooperation through trade investments while securing stronger global economy. Thank you all for joining us, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed. I mean, setting out not only the prospects as you see them, but again, emphasizing the importance of the relationship, not least the 120,000 people who, as you say, call the UAE their home from the United Kingdom. I'm delighted now to ask Lord Jerry Grimstone to give your response and to set out your own sense of where you think this investment relationship is going. Minister.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you for that introduction. And really pleased that the UK-UAE Business Council and the Emirates Society are holding this event today and have invited me to speak. Before I became a minister 18 months ago, I had a very close connection with the UAE for having served the board of Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank for 9 years. So it's an area and a region which I know very well. And of course, for centuries, the Gulf has been one of the world's great crossroads of civilization and trade, bringing ideas, innovation, and in those days, exotic goods to the British Isles since at least the 16th century. And the history of our two nations is intertwined in so many ways. But of course, vitally, the Gulf remains a most important engine of prosperity to this day. Taken together, and people don't always focus on this, the GCC is the UK's third largest export market worldwide, ranking only just behind the United States and China. And the UAE alone is the UK's 20th largest export market globally, accounting for no less than £10 billion of UK exports in the 4 quarters to Q3 last year. And as Lord Lister said, we have been working intensively over the past year to revamp our bilateral trading relationship, to revamp our investment relationship, identifying sectors of shared interest, which of course have become even more prevalent following COVID-19, including, I'll just call out some, life sciences, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, fintech and financial services. Just this summer, we concluded the UK GCC Joint Trade and Investment Review, which provided a clear overview of the trade and investment relationship between the UK and GCC member states. And it drew clear recommendations for future cooperation that can be taken forward to deepen our trading and our investment relationship in the long term. And this important review absolutely boosts the understanding of our respective priorities and begins to lay the groundwork for future FTA negotiations with the GCC and of course with individual countries, focusing on emerging sectors of the future, for example, tech and AI. We're all very much looking forward to His Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed visiting London. No doubt that His Highness will have a packed programme during his visit, and there is much for us to be proud of in the relationship. Our long-standing close relationships spanning diplomatic matters, cultural matters, and of course through business. And the visit will highlight the investment that Mubadala, of course, one of the world's largest and most active sovereign investment funds, its investments into the UK's world-leading technology, energy, infrastructure, and life sciences sectors. And I like to see this as a vote of confidence in the UK, strengthening our innovation-led industries of the future and enabling closer business ties, which will benefit both the economies of the UK and the UAE. And I've got no doubt this will highlight other exciting partnerships to help grow our trade and investment relationship. People like myself who visit the UAE regularly would have seen firsthand the vision of its leaders in continuing to develop the country as a world-class trading and investment nation. There are already over 6,000 UK companies operating in the UAE. And of course, as we are, the UAE is keen to attract foreign direct investment and offers a number of different options for companies to locate and relocate operations there. And organizations like the Business Council, and I'm really happy to acknowledge the amazing work that the Business Council do and the Emirates Society do, and of course my department, the DIT, are here to help trade and investment flourish between the two nations. And with new reforms in the UK for attracting business, such as the 100% onshore ownership, I do believe that the time is never better for UK companies to look to expand in the UAE. Of course, we have the Dubai Expo starting in just 2 weeks' time. The British Pavilion is looking great, if I may say so, and I hope that as many of you as possible will have the opportunity to visit Expo and to visit our pavilion. And I do believe that this 6-month showcase of business and innovation will be an ideal opportunity for UK and UAE companies to promote their services, products, and innovations. I and my fellow ministers will be delighted to attend Expo this year, and I'll be taking part myself in the Global Manufacturing and Industrialization Summit in November, which will be focusing on digitization. Of course, tech and AI flow through everything that we do now, and going forward, there are tremendous opportunities for the UK and the UAE in this field. We've already heard Lord Ed talk about Mubadala's life sciences investment, and I am looking forward to our partnership with Mubadala growing and growing and growing. I will be hosting, together with the Prime Minister and other ministers, UAE's key investors in the UK at the upcoming Global Investment Summit, which we are holding in London next month. This will be the largest gathering of global investors that I think we have ever had in the United Kingdom. I'm expecting the Prime Minister to set out his vision for global Britain, his vision for investment, and how his 10-point plan will create our new green industrial revolution. And of course, this is ahead of our hosting COP26 this November in Glasgow. So lots to think about, lots to talk about, really exciting times for the UK-AEE relationship. So I think today's session is very well timed. And as we emerge from the economic shocks of the pandemic, we will absolutely, as a government being, continue to embrace new opportunities for the UK and the UAE. And I'm looking forward as ever to working with people on this call to develop our wonderful, long-standing and mutually beneficial relationship long into the future. Thank you all very much.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your earlier contribution as well. As the questions begin to come in the Q&A, and I would be keen to encourage you to put your questions in that way. I've 1 or 2 queued up already. But I'd like to begin with just a couple of general questions, if I may, to both our ministers. And I wanted to look ahead to COP26 and the opportunities that will provide, because there will be a lot of focus not only on the obvious climate issues focused around COP26, but on the commercial opportunities for those who are working and fighting against the problems created by climate change and using the commercial sector in order to do that. I wondered, and if I could start perhaps with Minister Jerry Grimstone, and then I'll ask His Excellency for a comment. What do you think about how the UK and the UAE can partner together to develop and commercialize decarbonisation technologies and diversification of industry in order to meet some of the challenges that COP26 will throw up? What are the investment opportunities for those who are fighting against climate change and using the commercial sector to do so? Lord Grimstone.
Yes, so, well, certainly. I think it's important to remember that we are in the beginnings of a new industrial revolution. The industrial revolution in the UK in the 19th century, that was founded on British innovation and on coal and on carbon. And it's pleasingly symmetrical, I think, that the next industrial revolution is going to be founded on innovation and getting rid of carbon. It shows how the wheel of fate, does turn in the world. And I think our two nations together, and I'm well aware of some very exciting projects that are being looked at in the whole field, say, for example, of hydrogen, of carbon capture. We're very well placed to complement each other. I think that the diversification that we're seeing in the UAE economy is very exciting. And I'm expecting that the leading energy companies will want to be in the forefront of this green revolution. So lots to do, lots to announce. You only have to go to the east coast of the United Kingdom to see the transformational effects that we're already seeing from the green revolution. Areas such as Humberside, Teesside, Tyneside being revitalized, and it's very interesting that the UAE are already emerging as one of the key prospective investors there. So lots to do, Alistair.
Thank you. Dr. Thani, how does the UAE see the commercial opportunities associated with COP26 and how it fits in with the diversification of energy strategy that the country is already engaged upon?
Well, thank you so much for this question. It's something which is related to my background and my previous post. There've been so many projects between UAE and UK when it comes to green energy. Masdar has been investing in many wind projects in UK and been discussing and even in e-mobility lately as well. One of the things which is going to be as well announced later this week during His Highness visit to UK is the new partnership when it comes to green hydrogen between Masdar, Adnok, and some of the colleagues in UK. So we do see the commercial aspects of green technologies and green investments and the whole partnership between UAE and UK, and we're looking forward for the COP26 results later this year, hosted by our colleagues in UK. To be honest, now it's not anymore the decision of the legal and the negotiators to decide on slowing down the whole process of movements in climate change. It's becoming more business oriented. It's becoming more business attractive to everyone, and there are a huge potential to collaborate and to take this topic forward, even from the trade aspects and the investments. Sustainability and the green technology is becoming the norms with the new generations, and the consumption is putting a lot of pressure on the investors to change the way that they're running their businesses. So the carbon neutralities and the net carbon positive are the main driver for most of the investments moving forward. We've been as well seeing that the financial institutions stopping investing and stopping putting financial in any non-sustainable practices. So it's going to come and it's coming very soon, and we have to capitalize on that. We have to capitalize on the UAE's vision of achieving the 50% clean energy by 2050, and we have to complement the work that you guys are doing as well in UK in this topic.
Thank you. Matthew Lloyd in the Q&A has asked a general question, not specifically on COP26, but on the topic of the kind of role that we think technology will play in the decarbonisation of the UAE and the UK. I would have thought that technology would be absolutely key, Lord Jerry Grimstone, to tackling the issue of decarbonisation.
I mean, it's absolutely, key to it, you're right. And it's going to require, new emerging technologies. You look at sectors such as the steel sector, for example. I'm the minister responsible for the steel sector. And there we're looking at ways as how the government can work together in partnership with the steel industry to decarbonize. And you see similar things happening, across all sectors. And of course, all countries share the need to do this, which is why I think that collaboration, innovation are going to be at the heart. They're going to be at the heart of it. And then, of course, we have the extraordinary move towards electric vehicles, which will have a huge impact on energy consumption. All the global automotive manufacturers tell me how they've been caught short by the pace of adoption by customers demanding electric vehicles, particularly in Europe and the United Kingdom. And you just think through the ramifications of this. You think through the ramifications for the supply chain, for the manufacture of batteries, for the storage of energy, and innovation and technology are absolutely at the heart of this, which is why I think partnerships between the UK companies such as Mazda, companies such as Mubadala are really going to play a very, very important part in this going forward.
You mentioned electric vehicles. I have been driven by one at Mazda when I was last there, Your Excellency, Dr. Thani. So you will see technology absolutely at the heart of the decarbonisation process in the UAE, and your own investment in electric vehicles and the like will be coming on apace. Well,
let's be realistic. Technology is going to be the main lead for decarbonizations, and without this technology, we will not be able to achieve the Paris agreements and even any commitments which are going to come out later this year on COP26. If we're looking at the renewable energy and how the renewables manage to transform the huge reduction in emission in the power sector, the e-mobility now and the movements in the behavior of consumers, as well as the huge investment by the mobility companies, the efficiency in building, which is becoming more and more attractive to any tenants in those new buildings, asking about the sustainability practice before even they sign the contracts. The huge pressure that the globe now is putting on main industrial, and the way that they're changing the practices. I'll give you some example as well. In our aluminium sectors, we now are becoming one of the most sustainable aluminium producers in the world by using solar energy, solar power in our operations. So the practices is changing, and the technology is the main driver to achieve the decarbonizations. Are we moving the right speed? It's happening. It's moving slowly, but I'm sure in the upcoming decades things will be totally different than what we're living today in our daily life.
Thank you. I mean, almost certainly that must be correct. Lord Grimstone, you mentioned steel, and we have a question specifically on steel from a friend of the Emirates Society, Jim White, who's a regular attender. And Jim has asked this question for me to put. He asked, is there a strategic opportunity for Emirates Steel to export to UK and help reduce its supply deficit? From 2006 to 2009, one of my jobs was CEO of Emirates Steel, which was tasked to create a world-class integrated business with the greenest and most efficient credentials. There were 3 phases of development, 2 I was involved with. Emirates Steel has just announced commencement of the 3rd, so-called flat products, and will seek export opportunities. The scale of the UK's deficit and Emirates Steel capacity has a good fit. So is there a strategic opportunity, Jim asks, for Emirates Steel to export to UK and help reduce our own supply deficit? I wonder if, Jerry, if you'd like to take that first, and again, I'd ask His Excellency Dr. Al-Thani to comment.
Look, yes, of course. Steel is a highly traded commodity. It's very important to us that we have a indigenous steel manufacturing capability in the UK, and we do see steel as one of our strategic industries. But of course, other countries have competitive advantage in certain areas. And I just think we should see that in the whole context of increased trade between, the UK and the UAE. I think that people will be looking increasingly for green products. They'll be looking, increasingly for green steel for their manufacturing processes. And perhaps it's another example of how the ramifications of net zero go much wider than people previously have thought. So I welcome British companies exporting steel to the UAE, and I welcome the UAE exporting, their steel to the UK going forward.
Dr. Thani, the prospects for Emirates Steel?
Well, it's all business, and it's all business driven by the demands from not only UK, from all over the world. I think the Lord was absolutely right when it comes to sustainability. And this is as well related to the previous question when it comes to technology. Emirates Steel is one of the manufacturing industries in the UAE which already started with carbon capture and storage a few years ago to reduce their emission and carbon footprint within their operation. So when it comes to sustainability, they already took this aspects in considerations while producing the steel. Are they willing to expand and penetrate the British market? Absolutely, we're interested. And as the Lord said, we're welcoming any trade and when it comes to steel from UK, and we're willing to explore the business trade with the UK distributor and steel as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take us in a slightly different direction now, using the co-chair of the UAE-UK Business Council Education Group, who is Professor Richard Williams, who is the Principal and Vice Chancellor at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh. And again, a good friend of the partnership and extremely knowledgeable colleague. Professor Williams, I wonder if you'd like to ask your question live, and we'll go to you now.
All right, thank you, Alistair, and good day to you, Your Excellency, and Lord Grimstone and friends. I'm speaking to you, as Alistair said, both in the capacity of co-chair of the UAE-UK Business Council for Education, but also, of course, having been running a leading or the largest international university in UAE at Heriot-Watt for the last 16 years. And we were actually delighted to invest a further 433 million dirhams in UAE over the last 12 months. So there are some really significant partnership opportunities with business and universities in innovation, and we've touched on some of these: industrial carbonization, integrated energy and cooling, smart construction, robotics and AI. So these are some of the areas that really have a resonance between UAE and the UK. And I just wanted to ask a question really to draw attention to a really key thread that's relevant to UAE and UK, because if we're going to be successful in driving businesses forward in these innovative areas, we really need to develop a talent pipeline that's going to run through schools, through colleges and through universities, so that we can develop the human capacity to really allow the businesses to develop. And it's something we need to do in both of our nations. I'm absolutely convinced on this. And sometimes in the past, we've separated research and talent, and we really need to bring them absolutely together. I just wondered, in the context of our discussion today, I wondered how we might align development of this talent pipeline through schools, through colleges and universities. It's an issue we face together, how we might get better at doing this, particularly orienting to some of these new business areas. And just to flag up that this is an area that the Business Council on Education is very much intent on supporting. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard, very much. I don't know who would like to take this first, Dr. Thani?
Yes, can I take that one, please? Beside my role as the Minister of State for Foreign Trade, I'm the Minister in charge of talent attraction and retention within the UAE as well. And we've been working on the whole national agenda when it comes to talent attraction or retention. And we're taking the topic to a totally different level, where we're looking at the person and the human being within the UAE as a contributor to the whole ecosystem within the country. And he's the main DNA of the whole economic growth and economic developments within the UAE. So what we did, we launched an initiative called the 100% Invested, where we're looking at the whole life cycle of any person in the whole UAE, starting from the nursery until the retirements. And we went through each stage and start tackling the whole stability matters, the attractions to new talents, and ensuring that the growth of those talents and human beings who are living within the country. So we came up with around 26 initiatives within the whole UAE Talent Attraction and Retention Program. And we just launched last week as part of our 50 new economic initiatives as preparation for our celebration, the 50th anniversary, the new green visa system to attract and to ensure that the stability of the families, people, and communities within the UAE. What we did throughout this 26 initiatives, we for sure looked and revamped the whole residency system. Earlier this year, His Highness Sheikh Hamad Rashid, our Vice President and Prime Minister of Dubai, announced the Golden Visa, and we start granting this visa to many of our visitors, investors, entrepreneurs, talents, scientists, etc. And we start giving even citizenship to the niche and the key people within those expertise and investors. At the same time, just last week, we announced the Green Visa, where we're taking this as well to next level. And we did a major revamp within the whole residency system, where the visa is going to be granted to people without any need for any sponsorship. So they will be sponsoring themselves. More flexibility has been given to the children, so they can sponsor their children up to 25 instead of 18 years old. Anyone who lost their family, they can stay in the country up to 1 year, so they can continue living within the UAE. The freelancers visa has been introduced as well, so we can give more freedom and flexibility to the people. And at the same time, anyone who lost his job, instead of leaving within 30 days, they're allowed to stay up to 180 days within the UAE. So that's a quick glimpse on the residency system to ensure that the humanitarian aspects, the stability of the talents are there within the community. The other initiatives which as well signed last week, we signed a program or an initiative with LinkedIn, where we're looking at the whole data flow within the country and within the sector. So we can ensure where they're going, why they're leaving, which sectors we're losing, and how can we ensure that we're tackling any barriers face those talents. Moving forward, we're working with the Ministry of Education and the scholarships and the students, and we're working with the certain schools to ensure that the students are going to take in as well to the next level. After they graduate from the high school, they can be integrated in our schools, or at least if they want to go abroad and study, they can come back to the UAE and look and work within the UAE. The last topic, the last aspect is the pension for the expatriates, which we're looking at as well. So we looked at the whole life cycle for any human being living in the UAE, and we start tackling the barriers and anything which is facing their instability within the UAE. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I ask Lord Grimstone to comment, I wanted to ally the question on the talent pipeline with one that's come in from Basha Bernard Simon, who's again a long-time friend of the Emirates Society, who asks, it might be possibly timely to structure an internship, training and secondment program to go hand in hand with the deepening investment relationship also, given the strategic long-term positive impact on the bilateral relationship. So again, it's looking at all aspects of the talent pipeline, an internship, training and secondment program to go hand in hand with the deepening investment relationship. So on talent pipeline and how that fits in with investment strategy, Lord Grimstone, do you want to follow Dr. Thani's comments?
Yes, certainly. Look, I don't have a great deal to add. The comments were very, very comprehensive, but both our governments absolutely acknowledge the importance of education, and we share an ambition to strengthen education ties between the two countries. And I think that's education in its widest sense. I'm a great believer in young people getting the chance and the opportunities to work in other countries, to study in other countries. I think going forward, we absolutely have to recognize the importance of building capacity, upskilling, collaboration in technical and vocational training. And if we do that, it's surely going to lead to the development of the knowledge economy in both countries. I'm very pleased that the Education for the Future initiative, that's a series of thought leadership seminars delivered by UK and UAE experts, will be conducted in 2021 and beyond that. And I think as we overcome COVID, as the world overcomes COVID, and that we get back to normal patterns of travel and of course studying, I'd like to think that our young people will in particular seek to take advantage of the opportunities that will be available to them.
I'm sure they will. Thank you for setting it out so clearly. I'm conscious we only have our ministers for the hour from when we started, so I've got a couple of broader issues which have been raised, which I'd very much like to get in. Firstly, from our friend Peter Mitchellmore, he's asked, given increased geopolitical polarization between the US and China, is there a correspondingly growing opportunity within the UAE and the wider Middle East, South Asia, Africa region, of which the UAE is at the hub, to promote British standards in financial and professional services, manufacturing and engineering, not only for their objective excellence, but also as a neutral alternative to an invidious choice between the USA and China? So that strategic struggle between the USA and China, which is prevalent in a number of different areas, but Peter Mitchellmore is looking at whether there's an opportunity within the UAE region to promote British standards and as an objective, and maybe avoid some of the difficulties posed by the strategic conflict between the US and China. Your Excellency, I wonder if you have a view on that, and then Jerry after that.
Well, geopolitics will be always there, and we have to capitalize on some of the actions if it's going to add value to our economy. And I'll give you just an example. The tension between US and China has been adding a huge value to the Mexican by having some of the factories moving from China to Mexico, and from there growing the trade between Mexico and US lately. So those tensions sometimes creates opportunities which we have to capitalize on. And for us, when it comes to economy and trade, whenever there is opportunities, for sure we're going to jump in, explore, and work on. I do see a lot of opportunities between us as a UAE and UK, especially when it comes to the service sector. Service sectors, which is UK is leading, are some of the sectors which we're leading as well in our region. We're talking about financial sectors, insurance, and hospitalities, logistics. I think we can complement each other and use both locations in penetrating bigger markets in our regions. So absolutely, this is something which is we're working very closely, and it's going to be part of the economic agreements and the economic partnership agreement between us and UK, so we can complement and grow together on those topics.
Thank you. Lord Grimstone, music to your ears, finding British objective standards in financial professional services, in manufacturing, not only for their own quality, but also navigating the difficult area between China and the US.
Yes, look, certainly. And Alistair, there's probably nobody on the call who knows more than you do about the importance of soft power, you know, the importance of cultural links between standards. I think this goes much wider than, you know, the geopolitical issues between US and China. You know, that has particular drivers, as we know. But I do think that the whole area of, you know, cultural understanding, you know, making our people familiar with the culture of countries, trying to put British standards. Of course, you know, we want to see Britain as one of the great global nations with what I like to think of impartial and professional standards. And I like to think that professionalism in its widest guise is really one of Britain's greatest exports. And I think our service exports to the Gulf and to the UAE are only going to grow. And I think through that spreading of professionalism, through UAE professionals being educated here, through taking the knowledge back to the UAE, huge possibilities there. There's much more to power in the world than you know, shouting and screaming. The real power, the real long-term power, comes through these long-term influencing mechanisms and long-term affinities.
Thank you very much. It's been a fascinating discussion. I'm very conscious that we're rapidly running out of our hour. I wanted to squeeze in one more topic before asking Her Excellency, the Deputy Ambassador, to wrap it up. and that was to see if I could tempt either of you into a discussion about a free trade agreement. Firstly, to ask Jerry Grimstone what an ambitious free trade agreement might look like between the UK and the UAE, but also to ask whether it was the intention to look at a free trade agreement across the GCC as a whole, or to negotiate these directly state to state. I wonder if I might ask for your opinions on this, Minister, and then again ask Dr. Thani what he thinks an ambitious FTA between our two states would look like.
Well, look, first of all, the GCC is a customs union, a customs union, freely entered into by members of the GCC. So anything in a free trade agreement which appertains to the customs union will obviously have to be negotiated with the GCC as a whole, and that is going to be one of our focuses. But of course, modern free trade agreements go far, far wider than customs unions. They cover areas such as innovation, investment, digitalization, and a whole SMEs. How do you cover the whole kind of range of interactions between a country? It might well be that individual countries in the GCC choose to go further than the GCC arrangement. We'll have to see where we get to on all of that. But we have a really strong ambition during the course of next year to put into place a free trade agreement with the GCC, and where appropriate, building on that with agreements with individual countries.
Thank you, Dr. Thani.
Well, we're going to continue the discussion through the GCC for sure. The discussion has been already there for the last few months now, and just last week, as well as part of our 40th economic initiatives, we announced that we're going to sign 8 strategic economic partnerships with 8 countries as first batch, and UK for sure is going to be part of them. Trade is going to be an integral part as well from this agreement. So, and in bilateral matter, we're opening the topic directly with the key countries, but at the same time, we're continuing our engagement through the GCC as one block. So we want to gain the time, and we want to ensure that it's not about the trade only, it's about the whole economic partnerships between us and the strategic countries. So we're talking about investments, FDI, SMEs, trade and non-trade barriers, the commodities, services, IPs, and even environments on those strategic agreements. So the discussion is already there. There is the coordination between us and the counterparts in the UK. And I really hope that this is going to be seen the right very soon.
Thank you very much. Sadly, time's beaten us. A couple of questions still to be asked, but it's not possible, I'm afraid, to squeeze them all in before I ask Her Excellency, the Deputy Ambassador, to speak. Just to say, one came in from the Chairman of the British Business Group in Abu Dhabi, Nick Cochran-Diet, who just says he's seeing the best opportunities he's seen in over 50 years. And he knows the Emirates well, and he wants to see the UK do as much as possible to commit itself to further engagement with the Emirates, which I'm sure has been very much the tone of the conversation on both sides. But with that, and a thank you to all who've asked the questions, and to our 2 ministers for their engagement. We have to cut it short in an hour, but it's my very great pleasure to ask Her Excellency Rauda Al-Taiba, the Deputy Ambassador at the Emirates Embassy in London, for a vote of thanks and to round us off. Your Excellency.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bird, and good morning, Your Excellencies, Lord Grimstone, Your Excellency Lord Esther, and of course, Your Excellency Dr. Thani Zeyoudi. Such an interesting discussion, and as usual, great moderation. I think I would like to start by saying, honestly, for the Emirates Society, since the establishment of this society, let's say 4 years ago, we witnessed the great role that the society are playing by hosting very important event and bringing leaders from both countries who come and discuss very important topics. And I think all of that because of your great leadership, Mr. Bird, and also your great, fabulous, fantastic team. And on today's meeting and today's discussions, I think there was a very interesting quote that I read recently, which is the value of things is what the things will bring. And I think this meeting today holds a very great values than any. I think the value of future collaboration, the value of friendship, and I think the desire to work together and to enhance the relationship between both countries, to maintain it to the level which will take us to the next, I think, stage. And to achieve all of this kind of values, what actually we need strong leaders who believes on those kind of values. And I think we have three amazing leaders today with us. Lord Grimstone, first, with his great experience on the sectors, have lived in the UAE for many years. So not only he understands the UK sector, as much also he understands the potential and the opportunities in the UAE. And at the same time, with his great role with the investment office and the recent initiatives and investments, I think opportunity between both countries. And Lord Lister, with his chairman, a great leadership with the Business Council. And of course, His Excellency Dr. Thani Zeyoudi, who I had the pleasure of working with him for 5 years. And I think that was 10 or 12 years ago. Now I think people will count our age, Dr. Thani, so we have to be careful about that. But very dedicated person, very knowledgeable person, and very efficient. So, and I think having such kind of leaders, this is what lead our achievement. And both, and of course, with all this kind of, let's say, ministers who work together to ensure that our trade and investment maintain a robust momentum through the regular meeting, through the visit, through the dialogue, and through talking to business directly. Try to understand what actually the obstacles, what is the challenge that facing business today. And I would just want to end up by saying, I think Your Excellency Dr. Thani Zeyoudi, you spoke about the recent announcement in terms of the project of the 50th anniversary, the Golden Jubilees. And I think all of this kind of announcement just send a very clear message to everyone that the UAE is not only want to diversify our economy, or not only we want to show that the economy and trade is our priority, but at the same time, we want to be a leading countries worldwide in these sectors. And at the same time, for the audience today, please consider the recent announcement as a kind of open invitation to all of you to join, to participate, to be part of this kind of important stories, and to be part of our legacy. Because at the end, what we really hope that we can achieve the UAE dream, and at the same time, achieve your dreams. A strong partnership with the UK, with the amazing figure that we discussed today, being the first UK partners in the region. As Lord Grimstone said clearly, the 20 worldwide, and with the important figures of 40, I think our investment in the UK worth more than 40 billion pound. And I think all of that is important contributions of the great team that we have in both government and both private sectors. So just want to say it's a pleasure again to join this discussion, very interesting, and looking forward, of course, Dr. Thani, to invite you to come to the UK, and at the same time, Lord Grimstone, of course, we are more than happy to facilitate any future visit and looking forward for future events with the Emirates Society. Thank you, Mr. Bird.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for rounding off our morning so comprehensively. It only remains for me to thank my team at the Emirates Society, particularly Philippa Broom, for all the work she's done in putting the tech together, and all the rest of the colleagues who've been behind the scenes and working on this, all those who've helped to promote it, to thank all those guests who have joined us for this morning's meeting, to ask you to look out for Emirates Society events and contacts through social media, through Twitter, Facebook, website, and keep in touch with us, and to do our very best to play our part in this continuing relationship, and very much this year to be focusing on the 50 years of the UAE in the many different ways in which we can. So with that, to thank you, Your Excellency, very much for your presence, to thank our two ministers, Dr. Thani and Lord Jerry Grimstone. Thank you very much for giving us time this morning, Lord Eddie Udilister, and thank you all for being with us today. Goodbye, and join us next time at the Emirates Society and the UK UAE Business Council for their events. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And we can do the Zoom wave to conclude the meeting appropriately.